So welcome to the Salesforce Healthcare User Group. If this is your first time, it is a Trailblazer community group, and this is a virtual group. So we can have people from all over the world, which we can say that because Andy Wines here is representing that we know of from international. Anyone else who's not in the continental US, please shout out. We like the fact that we have more than just the US. But we love to get together and talk about Salesforce Health Cloud and healthcare and solving healthcare solutions or issues with solutions. So it's a group for anyone. We do know that we have a cross section between consultants and clients of Salesforce, and we don't care. We feel that even though we are consultants ourselves, we like to share the knowledge because anything that can help healthcare, we have a passion for it. And we can be, you can reach us through the virtual means, the Success Community, YouTube, and also each other. I live on LinkedIn. If you want to talk to me, get through me through LinkedIn, but you can also use the Success Community. Mel, who cannot join us this evening, is one of the three co-leaders, myself and Corinne. Corinne, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Corinne. I am a Salesforce consultant. I've been in the industry for well over a decade now, and for fun times, I like to embroider, and I prefer to embroider weird medieval art that I find. So.
Thanks, Corinne. And Mel, who's not here, she's a fantastic project manager. Both Corinne and I have worked with her. If you actually have her on our project, it will get done and done well. And she does love to listen to 80s hair bands when she goes for a run. And myself, I've been in IT healthcare for 16 plus years, enterprise healthcare systems, supporting post-acute, I think home health, discharge planning, reducing readmissions, which is now big. So I'm fortunate that my background actually is very popular right now. And my fun fact is my limit of roller coaster rides in a row is 4. I live in Orlando, Florida, so there is a reason for that. And I know that with my teenage son, after 4 roller coasters in a row, I'm like, okay, mama needs a break. So what are we going to talk about today? So people are here from different paths, but today, hopefully you saw that we're going to talk about Salesforce call centers. And usually we can have demos, and we can have, sometimes we have Salesforce actually here to represent, but this one is just Corinne and I, and you are all the very important part. So we're going to talk about Salesforce call centers. We're going to review the technology, and then we're going to actually go in and design a call center, solution that out. So let's talk about the technology. Health Cloud is built on Service Cloud. So usually when you're dealing with call centers, whether it is a healthcare one or not, you're looking at Service Cloud. You're usually looking at, you have your cases. Oh, let me pause. There is a certain assumption here that we need to make to get through this session today, or this call today, is that you actually know what Service Cloud is. When we post a slide deck, this is a great resource for Service Cloud, but there's some implied assumptions here that you're familiar with Service Cloud and that you have familiarity with Health Cloud. We can stop and answer, 1 or 2 sentences what a functionality is, but for us to get into a meaningful design session, we're going to keep it pretty basic and understand it. And then we encourage you to either reach out afterwards in Success Community or through LinkedIn or however. And if you need more assistance in learning the different components. So I want to throw out that as assumption, a baseline in today's meeting. But we have cases, we have service level agreements with milestones, omni-channel, SLAs with milestones. Basically, case comes in, it's a certain type, you're going to basically respond to it within a day, right? Omni-channel is how are we going to handle the cases and the calls and how we're going to route them accordingly. Live agent chat, live video chat. CTI integration, that's your integration with your phone system into Salesforce. And then look at all this cool AI-powered customer service. I haven't touched any of these except for the bots. And I'm really excited about, looking at next best action, some of those other items. And then what we have after the Service Cloud is we have Health Cloud. I'm not going to read the list, but the items in bold are more likely to be in your call center if it's a healthcare call center. So you have Care Team and Household Map, Community Cloud for healthcare, now known as Experience Cloud. Actually, yeah, Experience Cloud. EHR integrations, you're more likely to see. The Health Timeline. The Lightning Scheduler, it's not technically Health Cloud, but it depends on what collateral you look at. It is an add-on. Patient and member card, program management, which is your care programs, which usually leads to care plans. Provider relationship management, and that phrase encompasses managing your providers as well as provider search. Social determinants and utilization management. When you get the slide deck, if you'd like to know more, there is a Salesforce Health Cloud link. Any questions on that before we dive into design? No? How many people do we have online? Let me look. Seems like we have a good showing. So we talked about in here that we are going to do a design. Who's seen a Miro board out of curiosity? This is talking. You guys can talk.
Yep, we use Miro.
Awesome.
Love Miro.
Yep.
Not extensively, but at least familiar with it.
Okay, perfect. I was introduced to Miro through Slalom, where I currently work. And initially I was like, I use Lucidchart, but now I'm in love with Miro for whiteboarding. Just love, love, love it. And I know that Lucidchart they're trying to do a whiteboard, but I love this. So what we're going to do is here's our call center, and then there's all of these Post-its. And what I've done is drill down to elements that we're going to pull into our call center. So with that said, and there's the same things I just reviewed, right? They were on the slide deck, now they're Post-it notes. We talked about a patient call center. We have one of the critical things we need to think about is if we're doing a patient call center, provider call center, or member call center. And really it's what's your point? So if there are people here, how many people here, you're just, raise a hand or whatever, who are not in healthcare? That, just literally, I need a baseline of, what the audience attendance, where y'all at. How many are not healthcare people that are on here? Okay, we got Stephanie. So everyone else has worked with healthcare, understands healthcare. Okay. Thank you for calling that, because that is a challenge, especially if you're working in Salesforce and you're working around healthcare. You need to realize that your call center could have patient-centric, provider-centric, member-centric, or all of the above. But then you're going to have additional layers of complexity. And then, so we're going to focus on a patient. And then the other part you're going to look at is, are you doing sales, service, community? What are you trying to do with your call center? And for today's purpose, I'd like to focus on service, but I do want to call out something with sales. And so we're going to do a patient call center that's service oriented. That means we're working on supporting that patient in their care. And if they've already been a patient with ours. If you are working on a sales for leads and opportunities, this gets really interesting. One thing I want to point out to you all, and Corinne, jump in at any time, is there's this handy dandy thing called a candidate patient. And I'm going to shout it. Do not use candidate patient. It was thrown out there originally like a research type of thing. It's being deprecated, even though they still leave it in there. Do not use it. And I've seen that question pop up in the communities recently. So people keep on seeing this, they just don't. You use leads. Leads perfectly works with Health Cloud, along with opportunities. So if you have a situation where you are having a call center that's working on leads for patients, like you're in a fusion company, specialty pharmacy, things like that, you'd want to use leads and you want to convert them. And you can do a lead to a personal account conversion. And then you could have an opportunity, if you'd like, to actually measure how many times you have an engagement. Opportunities would be really good too for episodic care. So if you're thinking that you may have a patient that could be a prospective patient for, you're looking at, I don't know, home health or hospice. Like if you're looking for hospice care, and then you can have them as a person account, and then you can create an opportunity. So first it comes a lead, then becomes a person account, and then you may bypass leads completely, go straight to a person account, and then have opportunities. The reason being, guys, is that if you've worked with Health Cloud, Health Cloud doesn't have episodic care, because Health Cloud's like, we're not an EHR. That's true. But what if we had a person come on for service, and the first time is in January, the opportunity that you're trying to sell them, you're actively engaged with them. This is a real use case. You go out and you're trying to say, hey, you may be interested in a hospice care because you're in cancer, and it's in January, and they come on service for January and February. That'd be closed one, and the length of, the visits can be attributed to that opportunity. What if it's December and the cancer reemerged? Then they're going back on care again. The only way you can capture this is in opportunities, or you could actually use cases. I've seen both used, and those are your two options. Corinne, what else have you seen? I've only seen those two for episodic care. It's usually case or opportunity.
Yeah, and the difference really for me in choosing between case and opportunity is the intention of the data. So if your intention is to track kind of like pre-admission information, I would recommend, opportunities for that. But if you're tracking like care for those episodic events, like that's kind of where I would lean more towards cases, because then you get to leverage all that care plan functionality that's coming off of the case. So I would kind of look into like the intention of what you're tracking for that information. But yeah, I definitely first go around got caught in that candidate patient trap and started looking, like, oh, this is going to be perfect. And then saw all of the documentation saying not to use it and to use leads. And, just kind of keeping that in mind, that it is available in the documentation to, Salesforce does say to use leads for that. And all of their, all of that healthcare functionality around patient conversion and tracking within Health Cloud is functioning off of the leads object.
Absolutely. Any questions on that? Because I think that's really foundational to understanding. People are like, oh, Health Cloud, we can do this, but they don't. I think the concept of Health Cloud is you're a person and we're engaging with this person and we're going to have ongoing engagement. Yeah, but if you're doing sales, there is actually episodic. Does that make sense to everyone?
We have a question around
Awesome.
using, they have a client that's currently using candidate patients, and they're looking to see if they should suggest to move them over to a different object immediately, but we can hold that for the end of the call too.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah.
We're going to have tons of questions as we get warmed up. So I would get them off ASAP. I would be like, move. But the problem is, how much automation is built around that, right? Hopefully not a lot. I don't know if there's a lot of dependencies, and what would that take and their level of effort, and do they have the appetite for that? I mean,
but yeah, I agree. Like that would be a recommended step of, if you're at the stage right now where you're looking to just kind of like recommend actions for them, like recommending that they move from candidate patients into leads, or, develop a different workflow for that data flow would be one of the things on my list.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. That was me, and we are looking to make some suggestions for them coming in for implementation and recognizing they're still using it. And we want to make a recommendation to do so while we're really doing something else. But yeah, want to make sure that that's your same.
yeah. And person account, it is moving to person account, and it's just, and if they ask why, it's because it's best practice. It's to all the future functionality that's being built in Salesforce for Health Cloud is around person account. So they're going to miss out, right? You're going to end up having to do more work, and it's going to cost them more money down the road if they don't actually address it sooner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And other questions? I just realized I could open that up. Okay. So perfect. Any other questions before we keep on moving along? No. So we're going to do a patient call center. It's going to be service oriented. And do we want to even have community questions? Because I'm perfectly fine not, but I just want to know, are we doing a community with our patient call center? Anyone care?
Oh, well, yes. I mean,
fine. Everyone wants that. With experience, we'll do it. It's just there's such a level of complexity to it. It's probably why it went up. But yes, okay. We'll do a patient call center. It's based on service, and there's community, and there's Health Cloud. Great. Now, typically when we're looking at this, a very minimal functionality is appointment scheduling. And the other is patient experience. If those of you not familiar with healthcare, patient experience means patient complaints. That's the phraseology. Usually that's the default. You can hear other words, but usually patient experience is about that. So we're going to use our call center for appointment scheduling and patient experience. You could use this for care coordination, but if you end up using care coordination and you start into the path of care plans, you are now involving a clinical component. I had a very robust argument with someone recently. They're like, nothing clinical is in Salesforce Health Cloud. Wrong. That is very, very wrong. That is not true. And what I love to say is Salesforce Health Cloud starts when the patient leaves the hospital, or when the patient leaves the physician's office, or when the patient stops home health or leaves skilled nursing facility. It is beautifully, brilliantly designed for managing patients when they are not under clinical care, but you need clinical interaction. Example, you have a patient that is COPD and you are monitoring them for high blood pressure, and they may be on a medical device, and you may have a care plan that they need to check in every other day and either record their blood pressure or the medical device is tracking it. And then you have alerting, and you have a clinical care plan that the nurses or social workers are interacting with that patient for. That is clinical information. Salesforce is like, you know, we really don't want clinical information. We want the source of truth to be in EHRs. But the beauty of Salesforce Health Cloud is it's great for managing people, patients, people, whichever. And it is a robust tool. So you end up in a situation, you need to have that information go back into the EHR because you are storing clinical information or some kind of policy and procedures on that. Let's say you, Corinne, I'm sure you, from knowing from your smile and things like that, yeah, there's a lot more in there.
There's a lot, but I agree. Your EHR is, going to be the best source of truth when it comes to those, the active care plans. But to say that Salesforce isn't clinical at all is a lot. But there's definitely care programs and care coordination embedded into Health Cloud, and it specifically is like built off the case. So yeah, there's so much functionality there, especially when you're tracking patient care over time and you're tracking things like doing remote monitoring, pharmaceutical adherence, different things like that. It is built specifically to do those things really well.
I would say that's a phase 2. So we're like right now looking at a phase 1 call center. Usually if you're standing up a call center, they're looking at having EHR integration in with, I can't see, EHR integration. Let's go ahead and start throwing some of these things over here. So if we're going to start with a phase 1, I'll make that neater here in a second. We're going to deal with plus licenses for communities, even though you won't need them right away, you will when you end up doing integration. And to have your security for your community, you need a plus license, as well as you need the plus license for the member, your patients or members, if you're a payer, to be able to do task interaction. Then you're also going to you're probably going to be looking at, can't read that, Einstein bots minimum. And you can get into this fun, sexy stuff, but at least Einstein bots, if you end up having chats. Let's see, obviously cases, SLAs, we're not so worried. Omni-channel, you need knowledge. Knowledge can be in the community as well as to your agents. And then let's cherry pick these up real quick. I just realized the time, we need to move this a little bit faster. So surveys, assessment surveys. If anyone from Salesforce is on the line, I apologize, but I hate your surveys. I say it every single call. I hate these things. They're not there yet, guys. In my opinion, they're not there yet. Go with FormStack, FormAssembly, whatever. Just don't, because they have a lot of limitations. Anyone who's ever touched them wants to drink heavily afterwards. No. Unless you really like surveys, then go ahead and speak up. And then the care team, which is basically your case team. They just call it care team because it's different. Your care plan, we don't want to do that right now. Social determinants, if you're not sure what they are, it's basically what's your gap. It's like, oh, you should go and visit this location and get for physical therapy, go down to the store. They don't have a car. So how can they drive to get physical therapy if they don't have a car? That's a social determinant. You may end up having to arrange home health for the physical therapist to come to their home and do that. Social determinants is basically what is in their life preventing them from getting well. For our purposes, we're not doing a clinical, so we're going to not worry about that. Contact tracing, I think that's pretty much almost a SO 2020 kind of thing. That's pretty much going away. So care team, timeline, I love the timeline.
Timelines are all fun.
They are, especially when they work, which they're actually pretty stable right now. For a while, not so much. So timelines, actually, I love the fact that you can put a timeline on the person account and the opportunity and the case. So you can actually make that very visible to everyone. Utilization management, unless you have a payer call center, you're an insurance provider. Utilization management, not really. Member and patient card, no. Care programs, no. Referral management. I don't know why they have referral management. Do leads. I've never understood this. Someone maybe can illuminate to me why. Consent managements with care programs, you consent to enroll in our diabetes program. So that's what that's for. Remote monitoring, that's for your care plans and households. Let's do patient card, household. That's the only thing I don't like. Household, goodbye. You see anything else, guys, that you want me to throw into here? Just yell. Patient member card. Anybody seen anything else you want me to throw in? You're all being quiet. It's been a hard day, almost a Friday. Provider search. And
Add the programs, that's fine. We can add programs.
you want care programs?
Sure, yes.
Sweet. Which could be really good because you actually can do discount programs. Care program you can actually use for like, oh, we have you for, I don't know, is Judson on? Yeah, Judson, we'll do yours. Intelligent documentation. Judson, by the way, has a great program with that. And sure. All right. So we have ourselves this is a pretty significant build, guys, that we just did. All right. So let's start organizing. Anything else? Got anything else we want in here? Oops, CTI. Oh, very quiet. All right. And lightning scheduler.
I think that might be good.
Yeah. So
It's not great, but just the functionality, considering them trying to book an appointment or something like that.
yeah, they did come out with a new lightning scheduler that they're trying to pilot. I saw it on the consulting side. So the lightning scheduler is getting a boost, but I haven't had a chance to dig into that yet. All right. Whoo, we got a lot here. So what we're doing is patient service community plus license. We're going to move these two over here for a second because we can work with those. We're going to have the fact of our function is that we want our users to be able to schedule appointments. We want transparency for the patient experience, which basically I'm going to put complaints. So I have to stop translating that in my head. Complaints management. And then the cases is how we're going to be doing things. We've got knowledge, omni-channel. We're going to work on an EHR integration, patient member card, household, and Sandbox. Let me just organize this really quickly into the different areas and make these a little bit more sense. So what we have here is if we're doing appointment scheduling or anything, if the person calls in, ring, ring, I answer the phone. Well, to answer the phone, we want a CTI integration. Does anyone not know what a CTI integration is? Nope. Okay, so we're good on that. So we have the phone rings, or they're doing a chat online, and we have omni-channel to manage that. Perfect. We all pretty clear on that. We have cases. Is there anyone on the phone who's not a consultant? And Andy, I know you're a customer, but is there anyone who's not a consultant other than Andy on the phone? Who's me?
I'm not a consultant.
Judson, yeah, I was gonna say that's a stretch. Okay, you are true. You are not a consultant, but you are a partner. Okay, so other than Judson and Andy Wines, anyone else not a consultant on the line? No, okay, good. That actually helps a little bit. So we got cases and we have knowledge. So this is our core infrastructure, right? So we have the cases is what we're going to create And we're going to use cases for creation when the call rings instead of activity, because you may end up having that case become something more versus if you create an activity and then create a case, you're causing more work, right? You're actually chaining more work, and then you can anchor to that. All right, but Corinne, what do you think on that one? Because I always like to do, if there's going to be a chance, I'd rather do case to activities on that case.
Yeah, anytime you have a CTI integration going on, even if you're in a situation where someone's calling in about something related to a case that's already existing, you can leverage the parent case functionality and tie those events together if needed. But when it comes to being able to pull out the metrics later on, the case object has a lot of really great functionality within it. To be able to track all of the metrics behind call centers. Like there's so much going on in Service Cloud that's related to case that leveraging that functionality is worth it.
Absolutely. Even though I have seen CTIs popping an activity on the person account, I prefer cases. You could do a blending of how you want to do that, but I find that when you're looking at this, especially at Health Cloud, you're going to end up having a functionality, and then like if you end up having the parent case to the child case, and that you need to sort them out to different people resolving it. So this is our basic Service Cloud stand-up. Now we're talking about, let's start looking at the clinical component. You usually have an EHR integration, and you usually have it with the primary source. If you're a large healthcare system, you probably have a Health Connect, Nextgate. MuleSoft doesn't show up a lot. MuleSoft is a pretty big lift, but your Jitterbit, Scribe, TIBCO, I believe, you're going to have some kind of integration that's coming in and creating the person account. And usually you need to lock that down that it's view only, and that typically for large clients, that the only way you create a person account is through, you have the swivel chair, as they like to call it, and go into the EHR, create the patient, and then it syncs into the system, which can be a little annoying for the users, but you usually have to have like one source of truth. Smaller companies may let you create the patient inside Health Cloud, but then you got to figure out how do you get it back out to like sync into the EHR. So you need to have your person accounts created usually to pop, or you could be using the lead to patient integration. Again, small home health agencies, things like that, medical device companies, completely different. Or it could be that you're working with someone who actually gets the list of potential leads. You know, for hospice companies, they may be getting it from the payer payer companies and saying, hey, go follow up with these. We think they're at high risk. So we have this created. You do on your basic foundation, your patient member card, their timeline. This is your person account creation, right? So when we're looking at just creating your patient, I love Miro, but I'm not wrong thing. I'm not a rock star on this, but I like it. So on our person account, you definitely want to have your patient and member card, your health timeline, care team, case team, care team. And this is really useful because even though we don't have a clinical care management, if you have people involved with that person's care, that can be really useful. You want to have household. And on that, what else should we put on the person account? I think that's usually the basics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more that we do with that. I can search. Where is my, I'm missing one of my favorites. Where are
Like
you?
tasks and goals, those sorts of things.
Well, but see, then we're getting back into clinical, right? So if you have a clinical care team, then you could do, your problem statement with your, your goals, and then your interventions, which are tasks. In this scenario, we're not creating a care management. So though, if you did do a clinical, right, then you absolutely would end up having your care plans. And then with that, you could end up having the whole scenario, right, of your problems, goals, and then your task would be through your Community Plus. In the community, you can end up having your interventions being the task, and then they can actually interact with that in the community. But If you're not doing clinical engagement, just the care team, just for like a superficial, especially like if you manage, your care team manages the clinical component in a different application. And many times when you're approaching any healthcare company, they're not integrated at all. Nothing. So this is like a start, and then you're like, it would be nice if we shared information. So it may be that you have to put the care team in here and they know who to call or, go to the other system, right? But if that care team is actually in here, or you could have a care team that's actually has a community license, maybe, a chatter license. You usually can have chatter licenses, or really an expensive way to extending Salesforce to users who have a lightweight engagement. But good point. Where, guys, did I not create it? I guess I didn't. So we have our person account. So patient member card, that's what's displayed to the person answering the phone. The timeline is great because you want to configure it for all the different points. You can put cases on there. You can put also activities on there. I love it. You can configure the heck out of it, display whatever you want. The care team and the household. Now, household. We haven't really talked about that much of a gotchas yet, but this one is really interesting. And I laugh every freaking time I ask this question. Ring, the phone rings, they call. It's like, hi, this is John. I want to talk about my wife, Sally. Okay, John, what would you like to know? Oh, da, 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 da. How do you know that Sally gave permission for you to talk to John? A lot of times they don't know. And then they say, oh, I have a nurse available. Well, how do you know that's the right nurse? Maybe they need to speak to a cardiology nurse, and this is a pediatrics nurse. The big gotcha here is who has a right to talk? Big one. And household is the first part of knowing that. Really critical. I have seen this happen all the time. They call and leave messages, like they're doing outreaches, and people call back, or they say, oh, I need to talk to you about so-and-so, and they just start talking. And you don't know that you have the rights, for this person has the rights to know anything related to this person. Corinne, I know we were talking about this. What else would you like to add on that?
Basically, that also goes both ways. Like you said, it's not just the person on the other end, like asking about their family member. It's also, is the right nurse or the right, representative on the phone as well. So say, for example, you're staffing a call center with nurses and you have people calling into that call center that can be from anywhere. You need to make sure that the medical staff on your side has the proper licenses to speak to the people on the other end. So if someone's calling in from California, but the nurse that they're connected to is only licensed in New York, that can also be another kind of like right to talk issue of like whether or not they are supposed to be handling medical care for someone in a different location. So one, you need to confirm, does this person who's calling in, do they have the right to ask about medical information related to what they're asking about? And two, are they being actually connected to the right person, which kind of goes back to omni-channel as well.
Have any of you run into that or had concerns or how to address that? No? Well, please keep that in mind. That's huge. Now, some of the things you could do is if you capture on the household, you could actually do a screen pop. So if your CTI, incoming, the person account pops, you can actually have a screen flow where the people have to acknowledge and go through, oh, I talked to so-and-so, or yes, this is so-and-so and they have permission. You can actually, it depends on how important it is. A lot of businesses, healthcare don't even get to this granular level that you have to prompt them, because usually the call centers, they just don't think about, we need to protect the person and their information. And so we need to help, right? And if you capture on the household, you could do a screen pop and you can actually say, you need to answer these questions. Who you're talking to, is it this so-and-so? And then they basically, by clicking it, they're basically validating that they checked to make sure this is the right person that you should be talking to. And then if they're transferring a call, then you can actually filter, you know, they can do a search lookup and you can actually guide that through a screen flow, what they actually, who could they transfer that to? So there's ways through flows, screen flows, that you can actually guide that. And if you really don't have a lot of budget dollars for fancy screen flows, the minimum you can put it on the household, and you can have them look at the household and make sure that's very visible for them to double check and make sure that is part of their workflow process.
Flows are so incredibly useful to be able to track and manage that stuff, because it's definitely that piece of information that like is just, you're prompting them and they have to fill it out to be able to move forward. It really does function really well for those types of scenarios. But Kyle had a really good question. He asked if, what if any integration could there be between proxy accounts from Epic to Household and having the right to talk?
Epic.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that, but
Maybe
it's a
that's
really
just
good
a
question.
Pandora's box. Sorry.
Epic. You know, if you have that information of if it's listed, if you have an integration with Salesforce already from Epic and you have those fields, then you should be able to map it to a household and then basically values. It should be as simple, just if you already have the integration, it's just value mapping, right? And you would just create that they have, you know, permission to talk with these people. You could do it as
Make
an
it sound
object.
so easy.
Well, I did groan when you said Epic though, but I mean, minimum, you could, I mean, something theoretically, you could create an object, basically, you know, consent to, instead of like consent management, you can throw in also all of your other consent management that you would do for email and do not call, yada, yada, yada. Because yes, they do have do not calls on the contact, but if you have Marketing Cloud or some social media and you have extensive different departments, you ever gone through the experience? It takes 5 calls to unsubscribe to tell them to stop calling you, because once you're part of a hospital system, they keep calling you and calling and calling and calling. Not that I've experienced that. And what happens is, you know, you may have to have a centralized consent management, like custom object, and then you can basically create a junction between those individual members in the household and then have a start and stop, because that's important too. It's not just on off. It could be that you had a start and stop because John and Sally are married and then John and Sally are no longer married. Who knows? Or even better, a parent-child relationship. When the child hits 18, does mom have a right to know that so-and-so is pregnant? No clue. So you may have to think also about start and stop and the management of that. Salesforce Health Cloud does have a consent management, but it's around care programs. It's not around this use case. It's different. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. So one of the things, so the phone is rung. We've talked about the person account. We've talked about making sure who you're supposed to be talking to. Yay. We talked about the integration. Depending upon what's happening, if they're calling in and appointment scheduling is a common use case, the provider search is really, really nice, really powerful. And they're making it better. When it first came out, I was like, but they are actually enhancing it. And that whole dreaded, you had to wait 12 hours type of thing can you all still see my screen? I just got a connection blip on my, you all still see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
You're good.
Thank you. So provider search, when it first came out, you had to wait 12 hours. Apparently the summer 21, you don't have to wait. You can actually demand refresh. Yay.
That's exciting.
I know, I'm so excited. Summer 21 has a lot of goodies in there. Lots of goodies. Yeah, lots of goodies.
It's chock full of stuff, isn't it?
It does. It like stuff that you like, yeah. So provider search is getting better. You do need to do, if you're doing provider search, you also have to do provider relationship management. And that's that wonderful part where you can have Dr. Bob's primary account is ABC Clinic, but then he also visits other clinics and the whole relationship model. And then provider search is stood up on top of that. And that is very useful to a point. It's getting there. I think it's a lot better than it was, and there's some value to that. So you can use provider search, and provider search is supposed to be available in the community. So talking about, let's start tying some of these things in. You could have the case functionality in the community. You have Einstein bots. Well, actually more website for that. And then you have knowledge in the community. And then you also can have provider search in the community as well. So very, very nice. So you're talking to them. They want to, you know, potentially look at a provider. Yay. And then they're like, okay, that's great. I'm interested in your Be Well program. Yay. So now we have the program management, which care programs, and they want to sign up for your care program. You do have start and stops now in care programs, and they allow you to have multiple open care programs. At the very beginning, you can only have one open care program. Come on, if you usually can have one or two care programs, like, you know, they're part of the diabetes and nutrition. Those usually go together. So you can enroll them in care programs. This is where, if you need their consent and you need them to fill out that I agree to be enrolled in this program, you do need to do consent management. They do have the ability to sign documentation, but it's sort of kind of for the concept that you're right there in front of the patient. I haven't seen this done like you're mailing it to them. This is where I go back to other form products. But you do have care programs we can roll them into. So we have the phone was ring. They're calling, they want to schedule an appointment with our provider. They can do the search. Yay. They want to enroll in care programs. Awesome. And then you send them a link to download and print out information, and they're supposed to email it in or submit it or whatever. And then we get into intelligent document automation with intelligent form reader with the document management. That hurt. All right, so putting all that out, essentially they print out the information, they take pictures of it, because who faxes anymore? They take pictures of it, they submit it back. And then in Salesforce Intelligent Document Automation has a form reader that reads it, and then you can have a document management program. The form reader component of it, you need to get through Amazon. There are pros and cons to that. Judson, I give you a minute to do the commercial. Go.
All right, I muted myself. Yeah, there is pros and cons to it. And basically what you're trying to do is with Health Cloud, you're leveraging the received document object where things are coming in. For people who don't know, I work for a company called ZPaper, and we have that same functionality. We own our own infrastructure. We tie into multiple different OCR engines. TextTrack is the one that Salesforce is using. There's others that are out there, TextTrack, Fidalgo, you name it, and you can tie into those. And the one important thing about that is you always still need the human element, because no machine is 100% every single time. So utilizing that is a very valuable tool. And then from there, you want to be able to do triaging, and as Salesforce calls it, is transform, and move downstream and having your documents flow into specific workflows that you're trying to accomplish. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Judson. He has a great product. Salesforce has a product out there too. They're still maturing their product. There is an added SKU to get the intelligent form reader, but I love Judson's point. At the end of the day, let's get past the pixie dust. Let's get past the magic. It is great, but you do need human review. The difference is you're saving the time on them typing. They're just basically checking, right? And the computers can only go so far at this point. Now, that said, I love action lists with document management together, because without the intelligent form reader, which the fact that you can read and scan and put into the fields the handwritten information is a beautiful thing. A lot of people aren't going there yet, but the action list and the document management, just like care plans, you can create templates to auto-create tasks. Action lists is where you can have a template of action items to do. And document management can say, I have this document that I loaded up, manually attached to file. And then you can have a document management where you can say things are required, and then they do that. And action lists can be auto-created, the actual task auto-done off a template through Process Builder. So you can say, if these two things match, then auto-generate this action list on the case for this purposes and assign it. And then it's a beautiful thing because you can say on day 0, they need to do this. On day 3, they can do this. So I really, really love the fact that we have this ability. So a lot of times people were looking at using care plans tasks templates to auto-generate tasks other than using, process builder and flow. And it's like, well, no, the users, the admins create a action list template and then auto-assign it based on conditions and criteria that you build in process builder.
Justin says we mean action plans, not action lists.
You can tell I did this last night. Yes. Action plans create lists. That's my story. I'm sticking to that.
Didn't catch it either.
That's my story I'm sticking to. Thank you. Yes. No, because guess what? Someone's going to comment on the videos as well. Might as well correct it now. I know it's in Sandbox. Sure if it's in prod. What is? What's in Sandboxes? Not sure if it's in prod. There's a comment. I'm not sure what it's referencing to.
Yeah, I'm not certain either.
Eshel, you want to unmute and say? Eshel?
Oh, sorry, Eshel. It's Eshel. You're right.
Okay.
That was in reference. Sorry, I didn't say the reference. That was in with regard to the instant refresh for provider search.
Oh, right, for the summer release. Mm-hmm.
I think it may only be a Sandbox thing. In other words, for when you're developing and testing against your
not production.
Data. I don't know. It's not, honestly, it wasn't clear to me from the documentation, but it seemed to be that it was a Sandbox only thing. Like, so you get instant gratification on your development and testing.
Which is the biggest complaint, right? At the end of the day, it's like when you're doing development around and you have to wait. Yeah. It killed me when I stood it up. I was like, okay, but that's good to know. I'll test it and I'll see because I have a production order.
I mean, I'm hoping I'm wrong and that button is there in prod, but I'm not sure that it will be.
More than likely, you're going to be right. But thanks for that. I'll continue. I'll just be thrilled for the Sandbox, and thank you for pointing that out.
I've already put it to use in some testing. So yes, it's instant you had no idea how satisfying instant gratification could be until it was restored.
Part of me is like, oh, but I used to be able to just be like, oh, I have to wait a day to go back to this. I don't get it. No.
I know. I completely 100%. But thank you. Well, at least if we're just looking at the Sandbox, let's see. What else do we want to do? We have, oh my gosh, we only have 9 minutes. All right. So this is a lot of work.
A big project.
Lightning Scheduler. So Lightning Scheduler, do not use it for your provider scheduling. Really, no. I mean, Lightning Scheduler is a beautiful thing to stand up and you can have it for your community. The problem is that it's not successfully been designed. Maybe in the new one though, I literally have not had a chance. I'm itching to get in there to the updated Lightning Scheduler. But it's a pain in the hoosie for your users to update their availability. That's been the biggest complaint, right? So, but, if you have blocks of time, that's useful. Like I have a clinic that's open and you can sign up at these times or during the COVID, or it's my assistant in the background working. So Lightning Scheduler is useful in some areas, but until I think they really successfully get around that users can easily update their availability, and especially constantly changing, I'm not sure that this will really get parity. And they know it. You could get creative with some flows perhaps, but scheduling overall is usually the biggest nightmare, right? It's just hard to do.
Yeah. With Lightning Scheduler, it's when you're dealing with a use case where you're scheduling for a location and the availability isn't as much of a concern because you deal with the availability separately. You're just scheduling for that location. The scheduler, is a good use case for that. But yeah, like when you're scheduling for providers, because they're usually managing their own schedule and that schedule is usually managed externally somewhere else, trying to also layer in Lightning Scheduler on top of availability being managed disparately across, all the different providers, makes the use case much more complicated.
Yep. Hopefully they'll get there, just not there yet. I have Shield in red because while Shield is great, and I'm a big proponent of Shield, it's horrible in the fact that you end up encrypting PHI, which basically means you can't sort list views by the person's name. I hate it. So there is the impact of what it has on your flows. So when you encrypt at rest, you're looking at having to really become very creative of how you work with these fields that are encrypted at rest, and they don't want to work with flow, and the user experience is painful. So heads up on that. And integrations, I put a red on that because everyone wants them and they're really difficult to stand up, and there are unreasonable expectations around that by the clients. Or if you are a client and you know, you're like, hey, IT department, put this together. And then the IT department goes, yeah, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, and then we need to make them talk. Appointment scheduling I haven't read because you're still swivel chairing. Now, summer release has, I put this somewhere, intelligent appointment just came out for summer. I have no insight on this yet, but intelligent appointment management, sweet. When you start reading through this, they're like, you got to buy this, you got to buy this, you got to have this, you got to have this. So really not so sure that's actually even doable. You're still having people swivel chairing, or you're having very complicated integrations to do appointment scheduling. You're looking at, you're tracking your point of engagement with Sally calling in. And then you're turning to the scheduling system to schedule the appointment. I don't think we've seen anything else on that one. Yeah. Anyone successfully done it, let us know, because I haven't. Anybody? Nope. Bueller? No? Okay. Community security, make sure you get the Plus license. If you try to go cheap, you will end up with security issues that you actually cannot get around without the Plus license. I don't even know why they're selling the license without that security component, because they locked down the guest, and now you have to have authenticated. So there's that. And then culture is a big one. If you're not familiar with healthcare culture, this is huge in the fact that they move very slow to make decisions and to make changes. Very, very slow. And you may have entrepreneurial med device companies that move like this fast. They get agile methodology, but larger healthcare firms, they move very slow, very conservative. They get consensus, and even then they may wait, because that is what's kept them from being sued or being in the newspaper. So if you're not used to healthcare culture, you need to be very patient and realize you're going to go through a lot of red tape. So anyone else experience elsewise? Because that to me is healthcare culture in a nutshell. Y'all being quiet. Okay. As we're wrapping down, wow, 3 minutes. One really nice thing, Andy also pointed this out to me, but this is in the summer 21 release notes. Look at this new beauty. This is really cool.
I'm so excited about this map. I was just delighted to see it.
I know, right? I'm gonna put the link in chat so y'all have it. It's also in the slide deck we'll post, which is very small because didn't have much in there. But that's a slide. This is sweet. This is really, really sweet. So they actually take you through the journey. So before, when I said, oh, let's do patient call center, and then this came out in summer 21, I almost hesitated. I was like, do we really need to? But then I realized, you know what? We haven't gone through the exercise of actually building something. So there we go. All right, we have now blueprinted out a very, very robust patient call center that it's revolving around. If they have a complaint, they log a case, we escalate accordingly. We're using the SLAs and so forth. But then we also, oops, I said SLA, but I didn't include SLAs. So if it's a complaint, we definitely want SLAs on there. And if they're appointment scheduling, we talked about that. And then we talked about integration, what should be on that person account. And we talked about provider search, action plans, documentation management. If you're going to fax things in, the care programs, which is high level, we didn't granularly get into it, but it's completely doable and it's easy now. It's if you have care programs, you're enrolling people and then you're attributing that. This is easy to do, and it's great if you or your client offers them in the community. Any questions on how we got here or anything else?
I'm sure glad you showed Miro. This is a really neat tool. Thank you for demoing what you were demoing on Miro. I've never seen it before. It's really quite efficient. Is that real quick, is this a template that you have all these little sticky notes off to the side that you call up each time? Or do you have to build your sticky note templates the same, every single time?
So if you can build it once. So for like you're demoing and you want to use it as an experience to walk through your potential clients, you build it once and then you can just clone it, right? So you can do it that way and have that. So for me, what I did is I built it once for this use case. So there's no other reason to have it, right? Because I was just building it for this experience.
Right. How about when you're talking to a client, right, that maybe a similar type of meeting that you're going to have that you had last week with somebody, you already built your template and then you could slide your things on there rapidly because you already had that template built.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I liked it. Very nice.
When I was first introduced to it, I was like, what? And now I'm absolutely in love with it. But to this, did you all find this useful? Like, would you like to see more design sessions?
I thought that was really good. Yeah, it's really interesting stepping through it all.
Awesome. Anyone
Kyle
else?
says yes.
Kyle says yes and yes. Everyone else?
No, I liked it. I liked the way you did it this time.
Cool.
I think we were quiet because we wanted to make sure you got through it.
Yes, there's a lot there. A lot there. So it looks like the feedback's good because we don't want to do death by PowerPoint. I think we're going to actually we're taking a break and then we'll be back. So let me quickly say that 6 o'clock on my time, and Corinne's in California, and I don't know, Andy, what time it is in New Zealand, but
10 a.m.
10
Friday
a.m.
morning.
There you go. Oh, you're already in Friday. I'm jealous.
Sure life.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break and then we will be back in August. So we're going to take a 2-month break. No idea what we're going to talk about. I think I'm going to reach out to Salesforce and see if they can come talk about their new intelligent scheduling. That'd be fun to take a look at. And if you have, that'd be fun. So if you have any other topics, please let us know. And we will put it on the schedule and we will look at doing more of these kind of brainstorming walkthroughs. We normally are 80% consultants, so that makes sense. And as I tell Corinne, we agree, and Mel agrees too, there's enough business out there. And if you're not, Kyle, you're not a consultant, and I know Judson, you're not, but still, healthcare needs all our help. Or we share our wisdom and help each other out, the better off we are. So Corinne, do you have any last words before we hang up?
No, I'm excited to see everyone back in August. And if anyone has any other suggestions or anything like that, the chatter group is up. So we'll still be around there too. So
absolutely. All right. Thanks everyone. Talk to you later.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.